Greetings, everybody. This is Brother Ravana back once again. Today's topic is the mind of Djehuty, Melanin Serpent energy, and root working within the certain African spiritual systems, but from a left-hand path perspective. First of all, who is Djehuty? That's where we'll begin at. Djehuty, who is usually depicted with the head of an ibis or ibis, deriving from his name, and the curve of the ibis beak, which resembles the crescent moon. Now, the crescent moon has many symbols or symbolism to it. It's not just a feminine energy principle, it's actually a masculine principle as well. Djehuty always has, and a lot of his depictions has a symbol of the moon on his head. All things are not just feminine or masculine. This is the mistake many human beings make in their quest for knowledge, for truth, and on their spiritual journey. The problem is that we have to expand our minds beyond people's interpretations, people's definitions, people's understanding, and people's description of what spirituality is or isn't. You have to start seeing the symbols for yourself and utilize the Djehuty mind. Djehuty was considered the scribe of scribes. And Djehuty wrote stories, wrote formulas, mathematical formulas, language or linguistic formulas, magical formulas. The real reality is then that within this experience we are presently living, there is a grid of energy within yourself, outside of yourself, that helps with your expansion of your consciousness. That's important to understand, because this shit right here that we're doing as human beings is for the express purpose of learning how to manipulate energy. Everything is energy. Scientists have proven this. Everything is energy. And how you manipulate this energy is utilizing the power of your mind. Whether you call it Kundalini, chakras, whether you call it the chi, the prana, sechem, whether you call it magic, sorcery, it's all about utilizing the power of your mind to manipulate energy to work on your behalf. Now, some of you fluffy religious people may say, oh, you just can't manipulate energy because energy just is and you just have to work and flow with it. Bullcrap. As a god, meaning an individual who's in control of their life, taking responsibilities for their actions, for their success and failures, taking responsibility for their weaknesses, their strengths. Your goal here is to empower yourself to become greater than you've ever been. And to do that, you have to learn how to manipulate the energy within, specifically and more importantly within, and then help manifest it without or outside of you. So when you are in this process, you have to learn how to utilize the power of the mind for everything. We'll get back to that. So when you see Djehuty, sometimes you see the face of the dog-headed baboon, the body of a man, or again as a full dog-headed baboon. The ibis, or ibis, it is thought, had a crescent-shaped beak linking the bird to the moon. The dog-headed baboon, on the other hand, was a night animal that was seen by the Egyptians, or Cometians, who would greet the sun with chattering noises each morning, just as Djehuty, the moon god, would greet Re or Ra, the sun god, as he rose. The baboon is a symbol of evolution of the human experiment in time. Djehuty became credited by the ancient Cometians as the inventor of writing, and was also considered to have been the scribe of the underworld. And the moon became occasionally considered a separate entity, now that Djehuty had less association with it, and more with wisdom. For this reason, Djehuty was universally worshipped, or paid reverence to, by the scribes, particularly the Cometian scribes. Also, he became credited as the inventor of the 365-day calendar instead of 360 as it once was. It is said that he won the extra 5 days by gambling with the moon, then known as la bet, in a game of dice, for 1/72 of its light, or 5 days extra, which will create our present day cycle of 365 days and 1/4 of time. When the Sedjet and the Cheminu, some call them the Iniad and the Agduad, systems started to merge, one result was that for a time, Heru was considered a sibling of a Set. Asar, Satuch, and Nebhut. And so it is said, and was said, that Heteru, or Nut, had been cursed against having children during a 360-day year, but was able to have these 5 other children after those 5 extra days were won by Djehuty. Djehuty was thought to be the scribe of the gods, who kept a library of scrolls, over which one of his wives, Sishet, the goddess of writing, was thought to be his mistress. He was associated by the Cometians with speech, literature, arts, and learning. He too was a measure and recorder of time, as was Sishet. And many ancient Cometians, Egyptians, believed that Sishet invented writing, while Djehuty taught writing to mankind. She was known as the mistress of the house of books, indicating that she also took care of Djehuty's library of spells and scrolls. Djehuty was the one who made calculations concerning the heavens, the stars, and the earth. Djehuty was also considered the reckoner of times and of seasons, the one who measured out the heavens and planned the earth. He was also known as the one who balances, the Natid of the equilibrium, and the master of balance, the master of the divine body, and the voice of Re, or Ra. It is said that he authored every work on every branch of knowledge, both human and divine. He who understood all that is hidden under the heavenly vault. Djehuty was not just a scribe and friend to the gods, but essential to the order Ma'at, both in Kemet and the Duat. He was he who reckons the heavens and the counter of the stars and the measure of the earth. So, this is important to understand, because a lot of individuals walk around taking the title of Djehuty because they read some books, they read some papyruses, and they think that by reading a book, they have a right to take the title. Sounds dandy, but just not true. Let me explain something. To the Cometians, to the Yoruba, to the Akan, to the Fan, to the Iwe, to the many different tribes of Africa, the Zulu. To be a scribe, to be a master, you had to have been initiated. Many people run around never experience what a initiation is and why it's relevant. They'll make, and this is what makes me laugh, they'll make heinous claims as to why they think initiation is not necessary. They'll make claims that because your environment today is not equated to the environment back then, initiation wouldn't work for you. Bullcrap. I've been through many initiations from many different organizations or spiritual paths. It works. Why? Because it is a play. It is almost a play or a drama performed that has an impact on your mind and your senses. And what is done for you to excite those senses and expand those senses cannot be read in a book, cannot be understood from just reading a book. The experience is what's necessary. In Kemet, you would not be a master unless you had experienced being initiated. No claims. You had to be initiated. Many people will say you don't. And yeah, you don't have to be initiated for anything. You still would have knowledge. But here's the problem. I know many people with knowledge, but they're just that, with knowledge. They have no wisdom. The reason, and that's a problem, is because knowledge leads to wisdom. Wisdom is the empowerment of that knowledge, meaning knowledge is just information. But when you take that information and apply it to your daily life, then it becomes wisdom. And when you have the wisdom, that empowers you to have a greater understanding to make the different choices in your life necessary and that are beneficial for your growth. But you can't do that if you're just reading and guessing. Too many book readers out here in the conscious community. Too many book readers out here walking around like they know something. And they don't. They know book smarts, but you can tell they're not living it. How you can tell they're not living it is the example of their actions, their appearance, and things of that nature. So Djehuty dealt with geometry, reality, and time. Reality is a myth, mathematics, and metaphors. It is a consciousness computer experiment in time and illusion created by thought consciousness. The name Djehuty, more specifically Thoth, or Thoth, as the Greeks gave it, means thought and time. Djehuty was the master architect who created the blueprint of our reality based on the patterns of sacred geometry, or 12 around 1. Our reality follows a binary code of 101010. On, off, matter, antimatter repeats in cycles called time. It is here in the appearance of duality, which is not really true. Duality is based upon human perception, but in reality, there is no duality. It is just a various or varying degrees or vibrational degrees, frequencies of the same thing. And your perception on that object, situation, event is what you would determine and split into duality. It is here in the duet, underworld, or the chaos, void, and place of creation, which is outside of the box, outside of our experience, reflected in the minds of the true gods and goddesses, that the landscapes of Kemet, including the pyramids and temples that we experience until we evolve in the alchemy of time and consciousness. Djehuty created a grid program of experience, electromagnetic in nature, to allow for the bipolar aspects of linear time and illusion. In so doing, we go to 4 time and 3D physical reality. Djehuty constructed a pyramidal shaped vehicle which personifies the nature of reality. He placed half above, as above, in the non-physical, and half below as below. thus creating the sands of time or the hourglass, the Xbox at the center of the planet, where it all began and where all will evolve at 0 point, a time or place of balance. Because this Djehuty is the god of equilibrium, and considered depictions of him as the master of balance, to indicate that he was associated with the precession of the equinoxes, a time when the day and night were balanced. So, this is important to understand because how do you become Djehuty? See, a lot of people in the conscious community think they're not worshiping, but they're spook worshipers still. They'll worship Djehuty, and then you have those delusional that take on the title Djehuty but really don't earn it or deserve it. And then we're back to the same religious crap that we left. How do you embody the power of Djehuty? It's lip service just to say, oh, I'm Djehuty and I've read 1,000 books. That's great. Or I wrote 10 books. That's great. How do you embody it? How do you live as a Djehuty? Well, first of all, the reason you have sometimes many different depictions of Djehuty as you do of many of the Neteru and gods and Orisha and everything else is because they were titles. What I mean by that is this. In all these initiate or mystery schools, you have the high priest and many priests around that. The high priest of whatever particular school, in this case we're talking about Djehuty, would embody Djehuty because they had, through initiation, through trial and error, through being tried, tested, and proven, they became the one that embodied the consciousness, the energy, the actions, and the spirit of Djehuty. So they became known as Djehuty for their day and time. So how do you embody it in today's time? First of all, you take Djehuty, you study the symbols of Djehuty. You study the meanings of Djehuty, and then you create a ritual around Djehuty. You have Djehuty. And you could use a blue candle, which could represent consciousness in some circles, or a yellow candle, which represents consciousness in another circle, or a purple candle, which represents consciousness. Depends on who you're talking to. Whatever color you choose, you choose. You have two colors, and you have a candle on both sides of Djehuty, the statue or the image there, and you proclaim, not, oh, hail Djehuty, God of wisdom and writing, you have honored us with knowledge. See, because you're still going back to worshiping. You're still going back to praying. You're still going back to giving reverence to something outside of yourself. This is the left-hand path occult I deal with. I don't deal with the right-hand path occult. I don't deal with the right-hand path religious or spiritual system. I've been there, did that for years, and came over to this side because I was tired of the spook worship, tired of the God worship outside of yourself when you're the only God. The 5% nation, or properly called the nation of gods and earth, had it right. Who is the true and living God? The true and living God is the original man, or the original black man, the Asiatic black man, maker, owner, cream of planet Earth, father of civilization, and God of the universe. You could add mother in there as well. That's who the real God is. You. You, as an individual, create your life or destroy your life. You either build or destroy your life. Why? Because 8 represents as above, so below. 8 as above, so below. Building, and below that midway point is destruction. A God builds or destroys. This is what a God does. You destroy parts of yourself that are no longer needed, and you take those weak parts of yourself and you build anew. You don't worship externally and bow down and give reverence to and give fruits to what? Who or what are you giving fruits to? No one has still answered this question to me, other than give me an answer as tradition. So what? Tradition's what's got you screwed up today. You question everything as a God. And if it doesn't make sense to you, throw that shit out. It's not relevant anymore to you. Not to who's defining this for you, not who's defining spirituality for you, but for you. That is what a God does. That is the workings of God. And to have a Djehuty mind, you have to embody those principles of Djehuty. So when you're doing the ritual and you're looking, the symbols are activating those latent potentials and qualities within your subconscious, unconscious mind, and activating and bringing them forth from the deep burial ground or the duat, the underworld of your recesses of your subconscious mind. It's digging, much like an ibis with its rounded beak would dig or stick its beak into the waters to dig up fish. You're digging into your subconscious mind to bring up the necessary information. Necessary information that you need to extract from yourself to grow. You don't walk around saying, I'm Djehuty Rabbe, look at me, I'm the champion, I'm the God, and you live in your mom's basement. Or you're working at McDonald's. I ain't dissing if you're working there, but a God challenges themselves to be greater every day. A God, if you really are Djehuty, then you should have divine consciousness to manifest and create anything. So don't give me that shit that you Djehuty. If you ain't manifesting shit and still broke ass bastard, get the hell out of here, B. That doesn't work. Try running that on somebody who's new to information, has never really experienced any knowledge, and you trying to sound deep. That sounds like lovely information. But somebody who's been around for years, it's not going to work. So, Djehuty is also connected to the Book of the Dead, which is constituted as a collection of spells, charms, passwords, numbers, and magical formulas for the use of the deceased in the afterlife or those going through initiation to taste death and be resurrected. So, you have to understand that you as Djehuty have to start using your divine mind. You have to start using your consciousness to create new. You have to leave the old paradigms alone, the old spook worship alone, and start making things manifest as a God. Otherwise than that, you're back to the same shit, doing the same religious crap, worshiping the same spook gods, and never, ever getting ahead. So, why is that important? Because the day and time we're in, with all the negative crap happening on the planet, with the frequencies and vibrations of the planet thrown off, it is most important that you encompass and embody a higher state of consciousness than what we presently are embodying. You cannot embody a higher state of consciousness if you're constantly looking outside yourself, looking up, praying to something. That means you've not taken responsibility for yourself, and you're still going to thank God or blame the devil for everything. I don't care if you're comedic or not. Y'all do it all the time. You got to take rulership over yourself. As long as you take rulership over yourself, you'll start to manifest the consciousness of Djehuty. And you'll start taking control and ownership over your life and being that God. So, how does this work? Well, as a melanated individual, it is supremely important that you understand your sciences. What I mean by that is this. As a people, as a race of people, descended from the continent of Africa, and some of us were here as continents split, we started to understand things a little differently. And what I mean by that is this. You started to understand how life works. You started to connect to nature to understand how life works. And you started to manifest techniques, systems, and conscious thought to learn to work with this energy that is in and all around us. Now, all around us are the expressions of an intimate design, a vast interpenetrating intelligence working in the minutest detail of physical and subtle energetic nature. Evolution has not stopped with man, but is still active and ongoing. We think we've evolved to such a high state, but we really haven't. We've evolved in a material sense, technology sense, but have de-evolved in a spiritual sense. But now, time has shifted where people are evolving in a conscious sense. Higher forms of intelligence will arise as our future manifestation. Evolution is not the enemy. It is the most sublime expression. Your brain. Since we're talking about the divine mind or the Djehuty mind, each surface of the three unfolding brain structures in their turnings is infused with the dark living current of neuro-melanin from the brainstem to the neocortex. Now, why is this important? Melanin is that substance or molecule that coats life. It is that substance or molecule that allows you to connect at a higher frequency and rate than other groups of people on this planet. The curling of planes is happening within the bounds of the skull and creates the template for the perception of inner space within space, of unfolding inward higher dimensions. Depending on your perspective, it unfolds from below to above, or it folds out from above to below. In a process and structural sense, neuro-melanin, primarily because of its location, its high sensitivity to subtle electromagnetic activity, and its capacity to absorb and interact with light is, we believe, some of us know, involved in the brain's evolutionary folding and the perception of the unfolding of space. There's every reason to suspect that neuro-melanin is implicated in the capacity of consciousness to fold space. The exploration of melanin and neuromelanin has precious little to do with our current psychosis about race. Skin melanin is a mere surface phenomenon, shifting and variable. Brain or neuromelanin is a deep structure phenomenon. It is a universal and universal of human experience, even deeper than our collective African origins, and present in each of us regardless of ethnic, racial, religious, or even historical context. The sooner we realize this, the less intellectual taxation we will need to pay. Now, let me break this down for a moment right here. We get caught up on skin melanin. Yes, it plays an important part, but not the most important part. Get this. Skin melanin is important, and more so important depending on the climate you live in. If you live in warmer climates, the more abundant skin melanin you have, the more profound and beneficial it is for you. If you live in cooler climates, northern climates, melanin is not as beneficial. It actually can start to become toxic to you if you're in colder climates. Because when you're in colder climates, you don't have sufficient sunlight to produce an abundant amount of vitamin D. If you can't produce a sufficient amount of vitamin D within your body from the sunlight synthesizing with the molecule melanin, the skin melanin, to produce vitamin D, which helps produce serotonin during the day, which converts to melatonin in the shadow or the evening hours. So that is a problem in itself. When you're in a warmer climate such as Florida, more down in the southern states to the Caribbean, South America, Africa, Arabia, India, places like that, melanin is a powerful tool. Skin melanin. However, as Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum, who wrote this book, Dark Light Consciousness, who did his thorough research, is a doctor, has done the work necessary to do the research and investigate this information. As he stated here, skin melanin is a mere surface phenomenon, shifting and variable. But brain or neuromelanin is a deep structure phenomenon. The brain or neuromelanin is a universal of human experience, even deeper than our collective African origins, and present in each of us regardless of ethnic, racial, religious, or even historical context. When you understand that, then you're ready to take the next journey to higher states of consciousness, because you realize it's really not about race. Trust, I am proud of my race as that of African descendancy. I am proud of my ethnicity as a Latino. I am proud of my nationality as a Puerto Rican, or I almost got tongue-tied, as a Puerto Riqueño, as we say in Spanish. I am proud of that. No doubt. It shapes and molds who I am. I hold and grab onto that and wear it. But in no way, shape, form, or fashion do I limit myself just to identification of a mere surface phenomenon of my ethnic group, my nationality, my race. It's beyond that. You're trying to elevate, and it begins with your neuro-melanin. This is what is important. Why? This chapter will outline how the slowly upward twisting geodynamic forces of the Earth, some call it Gaia, some call it Ta, some call it Mother Earth, interact and interface with the brainstem and other coils above it. This chapter will also explore how the movement of the Earth's soon-to-be described geodynamic torque is subliminally detected by the neuro-melanin tract in the brainstem. We see these 3.5 coils endlessly repeated in the world's mythologies, ranging from the Damballa imagery of West Africa and Haitian voodoo, to the Uraeus or Serpent of Kemet, to the Kundalini of ancient India, where it's referred to as, like I said, the Kundalini. We see innumerable references to solar ladders and earth coils throughout different mythologies. This is the ancient Kemetic science of the brain, to which they devoted many of their medical texts and whose roots were discovered until millennia ago. Why is that important? Like I said in the introduction of the video, melanin serpent energy. This geodynamic torque that is happening in the planet essentially is a torque of a to and fro movement, up and down movement, which is like symbolic or similar to the Kundalini energy. Your neuro-melanin. Now, let me get this straight. Every human being has neuro-melanin. But melanated individuals, regardless how dark or light you are, tend to have a little more abundant amount of neuro-melanin. That neuro-melanin is so strong and so profound that it is able to detect on a subtle level the vibrational torque and frequency of the geodynamic torque of the planet. And it senses it within the neuro-melanin, which then causes the pineal gland to vibrate, which leads to higher states of consciousness, particularly in magic rituals, in meditation, and Kundalini work. It is important to understand that fact, though. And it can be found throughout Africa, South America, the Caribbean, and here in America. Practices such as hoodoo that originates in the Congo, came here, particularly found in South Carolina, Mississippi, and places like that. There was the connection to earth. In most African traditions, there's a strong connection to earth. Now you understand why. Because we're connecting to the geodynamic torque or vibrational frequencies of the earth. Which is why we were connected to herbs in most of our African traditions, whether it's voodoo, palo, santeria, lakumi, ifa, hoodoo, etc., etc., etc. We were always strongly connected to herbs because earth, through its herbs, maintained, cultivated, and held within the herb the vibrational frequencies of the torque of the earth. The serpent energy was cultivated, nourished, and contained within these herbs. And when these herbs were utilized in magic rituals, in healing purposes, it helped activate serpentine or serpentine energy within yourself. Or the Kundalini. Whatever floats your boat to make you feel happy about your definitions and descriptions is all good. This is why in a lot of these traditions they had serpents, or describe the serpentine energy within the African traditions, Kemetic traditions. There was always a connection to serpents, because it represented the Kundalini or serpentine energy evolving from the center of the earth upward. Now, above the folds of the brain, the traditions tell us that are even more subtle unfolded planes of space itself that open up to higher regions of physical and spiritual reality. This is the confession of adepts of every historical epoch throughout the world, and is reflected in the world's iconographic spiritual imagery. This idea is the leitmotif throughout this book. Beyond the brainstem, this melanin is represented in ample amounts in our internal organs, especially on the skin surface of our organs. So not only do we have melanin on the largest organ of the body, the surface skin, but also our heart, lungs, kidney, and gastrointestinal tract, all contain structure bounded by skin. Melanin is able to transduce or shift energy from one state to another, from vibration to sound to heat to light. Let me repeat that again because this is really important. Melanin is able to transduce or shift energy from one state to another, from vibration to sound to heat to light. There was a study done. Can't remember the exact year, but there was a African-American track athlete who, can't remember the exact name of it, the 100 meter. I think it's 100 meter. And there was a Caucasian track athlete who ran 100 meter. They were both clocked at the same exact speed. So they decided to study this phenomenon, to study who would win. And in this race, as I stated, they made them race each other 10 times. Mind you, they were clocked at the same exact speed before this race. What happened was the African-American track athlete won every time. Now, they were trying to figure out how this is possible if they're exactly, prior to the race, recorded as having the same time. What they came to find out was that the melanin is able to transduce or shift energy from one state to another, from vibration to sound. So, keep that in mind, from vibration to sound. What happened was that what they found out was that every time the gun went off to begin the race, the African-American brother, because of his abundance of melanin, we're not talking about skin melanin, we're talking about neuro-melanin, was able to feel the vibration, which before the sound of the gun going off to begin the race, where he was able to take off a split second faster than a Caucasian track athlete. Now you understand what this means here. Now you understand why in our African sciences, the drum is so important. The drum is the heartbeat connected to the vibrational frequency of the earth, which allows for us to not only take the vibration of the drum created to sound, but to heat to light and cause a altered state of consciousness, which allows you to raise up, as that drum keeps hitting, it's raising up the serpentine energy from the earth through you, reaching your pineal gland, creating an altered state of consciousness, which then allows you to contact interdimensionally with spirits, means blood, once living flesh and blood individuals, contact these spirits, either be mounted, ridden, or receive a message from these spirits. This is how we work the Kundalini in our African sciences. It wasn't just what the Indians did. No doubt their system is effective and good, but we had our own system. And the drum was a key component of that system. This is how you worked that energy. Since all forms of energy are related to each other, it is not difficult to see that the subtle energy field of the body, referred to in the esoteric traditions as in the energy body, the etheric body, or the light or luminous body, and so forth, is connected to an energy field that may be partially generated by the bioelectrical capacities of melanin in and on the surface of our inner organs to our neuro-melanin. This is partially why It is believed that the sensitive human nervous system can detect geodynamic forces arising from within the Earth. As I said earlier, melanin also has a tetrahedron or pyramidal shape, a shape that is associated with not only the pyramid, but the many forms of the image of the Sri Yantra, and the many internal shapes that the sound Om makes when it is physically made manifest, as shown in the tonoscope research of Swiss scientist Hans Jenny. Melanin, because it interacts with the electromagnetic energy spectrum, has a wave nature. This is intimately connected to one of the aspects of light, the wave nature of light. Melanin is also a biochemical substrate. In other words, because melanin is both a physical substrate of our physical bodies on innumerable levels, because it is intimately woven into the electromagnetic fields, it becomes the entryway or the physical template for our capacity to vibrate with fifth-dimensional forces that in this system are the reality and the nature of darkness and light itself. Melanin is one of the templates of the light or dark energy body. Now, like I just said, when you are at a bembe or a goon ceremony, they're playing the drums, that vibration and frequency hits the melanin, causes the serpent energy to rise, altering your state of consciousness through the pineal gland vibrating. You then make contact with fifth dimensional forces, spirits, or energy that can either mount you, ride you, or alter your state or give you messages and expand your consciousness. From the earliest days of embryology, melanin creates the guiding, orienting light for the development and unfolding of the central nervous system. The peripheral nervous system and the autonomic nervous system, with its two intertwining branches, the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. It is the central nervous system that directly gives rise to the brainstem and the spinal cord. The central nervous system also forms a kind of virtual template of the different potential and actualized states of consciousness into which human beings can emerge. It's very important to understand this system. Very important to understand why we worked in hoodoo, voodoo, palo, santeria, lukumi, things of that nature. Why we worked with herbs, because they harness the frequency, the vibration of the planet Earth. They harness the serpentine energy, and they, when utilized, can help heal, can help alter your state of consciousness, and a lot of other benefits from herbs. Our dancing was essential. If you look at the movements of our dancing, they're very focused on the hips. Your hips are constantly moving side to side. Why is that? Because you're creating the torque and allowing the vibration of the earth to move that, or the vibration of the drums to move those hips, which are creating that torque, allowing the serpentine energy to rise up. So this is why it's very important to understand many of these systems and how they're interconnected, and the importance of utilizing your divine mind to learn how to manipulate that energy, learn how to cultivate that energy, and utilize it to raise up. I'm on the left-hand path of code, so I don't worship the Orisha. As I shared with you in some of the other videos, I become the Orisha. In true Ifa, you take the energy of Olodumare, which is considered the serpentine creative energy of the planet, and you learn how to cultivate that energy through the Orisha, not to worship them, but rather to become them. How to become an Obatala. How Obatala represents purity Not in a spooky sense, but purity as in a sense of purifying your mind from all the weaknesses, all the garbage, all the pain, trauma, wounds, insecurities, and all the things there to cultivate a higher state of consciousness. To be a leader, to rule over yourself, to be a sovereign ruler over yourself. This is what I become when I take that energy to bring forth the God self, the true self. Not worshiping these things, not bowing down to these things, but becoming those things. That's true Ifa. Not putting fruits and offerings to Obatala, to Oshun, to Shango, to Chosi, or whatever. It's to become that. And Ifa, Lukumi Santeria, who would Djehuty be? Orunmila. Orunmila is considered Djehuty because he brought consciousness of the Odu. He brought consciousness to this planet and shared and taught Ifa. One of the colors of Orunmila is green. Djehuty is always symbolized with the emerald tablets or the green energy. Very connected. But it's not about being a worshiper. It's about becoming a God over self and utilizing these different archetypes to become that God over self. Learning how to utilize your melanin. How do you purify your melanin? How do you activate your melanin? Colloidal silver, chlorophyll, blue-green algae, necessary to activate your blue-green energy. I mean, to activate your melanin. It's very important that you take the colloidal silver. Not only does it help purify your body, but it helps purify your melanin. Learning which herbs are important to use. Like, for example, I help create spiritual baths for people. I don't have to study in depthly herbs, although I know it. I let the spirit within me that's connected to the Djehuty mind to guide me as to what herbs, what essential oils are best to create a spiritual bath for individuals. And that some individuals can tell you that shit works. It's strong. It's powerful. Because I allow that Djehuty mind to connect to the energy of the earth, vibrate with my frequency and my energy, my spirit, to give me the message. To connect with the message of what is essential, what's best. So, for example, in the Ifa or Lukumi Yoruba Santeria tradition of the Caribbean, Rompe Saragüey is a herb that's very important for helping break obstacles, blockages, curses, things of that nature. You could utilize that with a certain essential oils to help even make it more profound with some Florida water. Bingo. You popping. You on and popping then. What you have to understand, though, is that you have to stay connected. You have to stay connected to this higher energy that's consistently vibrating, coming forth from the earth. But you can't be afraid to work in the dark. Because most sorcerers worked in the dark. An African sorcerer was not considered a sorcerer until they knew how to work with herbs, specifically also cultivating those herbs in the dark. Which ones cultivated the energy of the dark? Which ones cultivated the energy of the day, or the sun and the night, or the moon energy? And you needed both, depending on the situation. Hoodoo that has very strong tradition to herbs. Yes, that we use Native American herbs because in hoodoo, and here in America, many of the Native Americans work side by side with the Africans because many were enslaved, or many Africans, when they created the Maroon societies, ended up working with Native Americans and sharing knowledge and wisdom and sciences. Same thing happened in Puerto Rico. They call them cimarrones, which means maroon in Spanish. And they connected with the Tainos, the indigenous people there. The very few Tainos that were left, and they mixed together. They worked together. The sciences were shared together. And this is where we learned the certain herbs from these different islands that were replacing the herbs used in Africa that will work the same way. It was very simplistic knowledge and information on how to use these things that became watered down and more religified through the mixing of this Christianity, Protestant Christianity, and things of that nature, Catholicism, things of that nature. So it became more of a religion than a spiritual science. I take the freaking religious crap out of there. I deal with the science as a left-hand path, occult practitioner. I'm the God, the only God, so I learn how to work these energies as the only God. I become those energies, those Orisha, those Neteru, things of that nature. I don't worship Djehuty. I use the mind of Djehuty that is innate potential. It's innate in a potential that is there within me to raise up. This is why every so often we deal with doing a bembe or a ancestor drumming ritual, or utilizing an archetype drumming ritual as a bembe or a goon drumming ritual for the ancestors. Because we understand the importance of the drum and the connection to the serpentine energy, and the connection that is important for you to transform and raise up as a god. You can't do this if you're constantly worshiping, groveling, and extending your hand out to other individuals for help, when the helping hand is at the end of your own arm. It's there waiting for you to take control and initiative to be a master. So the drum is important in our African sciences. The herbs are important in our African sciences. Meditation was important in our African sciences. And these things are there way before India even created a lot of these things. And then some of our people left from Nubia as Kushites and ended up in India, and which at one time was known as Indus Kush, and shared this information and knowledge with the individuals there. And some are the indigenous people there from Kush. Before the Aryans invaded, mixed in, brought in their Caucasian philosophies and spiritual system and messed it all up. Created a caste system, racist system, whatever you want to call it. So you have to understand. You have to connect back to these realities within you. This is also important with sex energy and how you work with the sex energy. If you and your partner know how to raise up the serpentine energy prior to sex magic, you have better results. But some of y'all think you know everything already. Some of y'all think you know it all. Some of y'all think you don't need certain things anymore. Listen, everything and anything you think you don't need, you most likely need. What I mean by that is this. For example, how to utilize bandha locks through Kriya Yoga, right? Which is basically an energy pump. So similar to the torque energy, within your body, how to lock the energy within a certain area, starting from your root chakra, then up to your abdomen, then up to your higher part of your body. You may think you don't need it, but you need it more than you think. You just can't think that because you're a horny, freaky person that, oh, you got it all figured out and I'm a sex master. No, you're not. That's not what sex mastery is all about. Just screwing and coming. Sex mastery is learning how to cultivate and utilize the energies within you, raising them up to a higher level, and then when you share it with your partner, utilizing their energy to raise up both of your energies to a higher level. That's a whole nother subject for a whole nother video. But learn and understand this. This is our shit. Reclaim your shit. Bring it back to the left-hand path and become a god on those paths. You don't have to join it. You don't have to be initiated in Lukumi, Santeria, Ifa, Palo. You don't have to do any of that. What you can do is utilize some of the archetypes. You can utilize some of the principles and master that shit within you when you're working. I'm on the left-hand path. My shit on the left-hand path is Kemetic, using some of these African sciences, from whether it's Ifa, whether it's Palo, and making it into some new profound system for me that works for me. That's best utilized for me. Trust me, I work and study all that shit. I also incorporate within that a lot of sciences from the Indians or Hindu Kush or the Indus Kush or the Dravidian sciences, and cultivated because it all emanated and originated in Kush anyways, or Nubia, and combine it and bring back together to bring up a higher form of working things. So with that, I'm going to leave y'all. I'm going to say thank you for listening. Share this. If you have any questions, comments that are legit, not just because you want to bash somebody. Comments that are real, that you really want to build and discuss some things. Hit me up at darkoccultist99@outlook.com. We'll be having a class soon. Another radio show. But stay tuned. Peace.